Hello, today's talk is about job titles, something that has piqued my interest recently. You see, our internet homepage at work has a regular feature in which a member of staff is interviewed about their job. At the moment there's an interview with a talent acquisition consultant. My suspicions about the real purpose of this job were correct. She works in human resources with the specific purpose of recruiting new staff. So she's a recruiter, someone who recruits. The phrase talent acquisition consultant left me wondering about three things, namely all of the individual words. Let's take them in turn. Firstly, talent. I wonder whether in the past, before such titles existed, whether there was ever a need to recruit people who were not talented. Somehow I doubt it. So the word talent seems redundant. Of course you need someone who has talent in the requirements of the job that they're applying for. Second word, acquisition, which is the process of getting something, often through either buying it, or in the case of knowledge and skills, through hard work and learning. Acquisition in this job title seems a little too grand. I guess the role involves advertising for jobs, looking through application forms and CVs, and then interviewing candidates. Yeah, that'll be the job of the HR department. Or would it? Now, in most companies that I've worked for at least, if, for example, the sales team need a new salesperson, the sales manager looks through the applications and interviews the candidates. English language teachers are interviewed by the most senior teachers and perhaps the teaching centre manager. The IT department manager will generally want to interview the IT specialists. So not much of a need for human resources in the job recruitment process in many cases. The final word in the job title is consultant. Now, for me, a consultant is someone who does not work for the company. They're not on the payroll. It is someone who is brought in by the company for a specific time, usually fairly short term, to offer consultancy on a very specific point, like, for example, upgrading the IT system, promoting a new product, or offering advice on how to improve a certain aspect of the business. Therefore, I conclude that talent acquisition consultant is a very silly job title. A better title would be human resources clerk or human resources administrator. I remember working for an engineering company in the early 1990s, and after some restructuring, the division of the company I worked for got its own person to find the best prices for the things we needed to buy to build our product and to place the orders for those products. His name was Bob. Various names were suggested for his job title, like procurement manager and purchasing executive. The production manager, who was Bob's immediate boss, said no, because Bob would not be managing anyone, so he can't be a manager. Seems reasonable. A manager traditionally was given the title of manager because they managed the work of the people below them. The production manager asked a very simple question: what will Bob do? And the answer, simply, buy things. Title decided. Bob's title became buyer. Very clear. Such simplicity nowadays is unheard of, pretty much. Talent acquisition consultant being a prime example of how job titles have become so, well, let's be frank, so stupid. But why has it happened? Well, the Guardian newspaper had an article by a guy called Stefan Stern, who's a visiting professor at the Cass Business School in London, and he's the author of a number of management books. In the article he made a valid point that the world of work is changing all of the time and new job titles are required. He gives the example of the person who monitors social media to find out what the world is saying about the company on, for example, Twitter. Now, 15 or 20 years ago, the job was simply not required. But nowadays, social media can do a lot of damage to a company if people start discussing it in a negative way. Social media can also be a very positive force for a company if it's used in the right way, keeping its customers informed and up to date without spamming them. A tricky balance there. What should that person's job title be? Well, the comments section in the Guardian article mostly suggested social media monitor. However, a search on a recruitment website has similar jobs listed as creative content manager, digital content producer, social influencer, and digital marketing specialist or digital marketing coordinator, all of which sound a little more grand, more important than social media monitor. I mentioned earlier in the story about the buyer about the job of a manager, and that traditionally a manager manages people. He or she is directly in charge of what some employees are doing. Nowadays it's difficult to know how senior a position is just from its job title. I've had a look at the British Council's vacancy page. Consider these titles: manager, officer, administrator, executive, advisor, director, coordinator, lead, head, partner, curator, and frontliner. Some of these seem to show a level of responsibility. Director would appear to be very senior. Manager, just below director. At the lower end, I would guess officer and administrator. Frontliner, if you're interested, is a receptionist. Wow, frontliner. Sounds good. So where do lead, head, advisor and partner, where do they fit into this hierarchy? Well, the British Council puts most of its jobs into a banding or grading system. The higher the band or grade, the more responsibility and higher pay. There is numeric banding and alphabetical grading. So from what I can understand looking at these different jobs online, the order in terms of seniority and responsibility for alphabetical grades go as follows. Director is band 8. Partner is not banded but seems to be very senior, possibly more senior than director. A senior project manager is band 8 as well. One of the consultant roles is also band 8, but another has no band or grade associated with it. Curator is band 7, as is lead. Officer is grade 5, and executive is 4, as is coordinator. So executive sounds very grand, doesn't it? Very important. But its grading suggests very little seniority. So that's the numeric grades. In terms of the alphabetical grades, advisor is J, frontliner is also J, administrator H, and manager just a G. So this is quite confusing for me. An executive is lower than an officer, a coordinator is also lower than an officer, a manager is lower than an advisor and an administrator. A receptionist, the frontliner, is the same as an advisor and more important than a manager. So this little bit of research left me wondering what the purpose of job titles really is. And then I remembered that a lot of the comments in the newspaper article, they were basically saying that job titles are often given to boost the morale and boost the egos of employees, and are often given in place of a salary increase. So I therefore propose that teachers rebrand themselves as directors of classroom operations, or perhaps senior learning process consultants. Thank you.